So you've been doing this for a fair amount of time, and you were mentioning to me previously how there's been some like high-profile cases that you've been involved in. Can you tell me a little bit about the Ray Lewis case that you were involved in?
Oh, yes. Yeah, so I got involved in the Ray Lewis case. This was in 2000, January 2000.
Can you tell us a bit about the background of the case?
Yeah. So Ray Lewis is a famous American football player that played for the Baltimore Ravens. Mm-hmm. And he was like one of the, if you mention American football players, NFL, you can't talk about the NFL and certain positions. He played linebacker, defensive guy. You can't talk about that game without mentioning him. He's a Hall of Famer. So at the time, he was young. He was a up and rising, established superstar in the sport. And he was in Atlanta, Georgia during the Super Bowl against the Rams and the Titans, I believe it was, in Atlanta in 2000. And during that Super Bowl week, there's a lot of parties. And the Super Bowl, as you know, it's a tremendous event, and it's like a week long of festivities. But the night of the game, Ray Lewis and a party, he had a party of people, like 13 people in his party, that all arrived at a particular nightclub in Atlanta, in this very ritzy area of Atlanta, in a limo. And, these guys were all just dressed, very expensive jewelry and fur coats and all this, because it was in January. And they were at a nightclub, and there was a group of people there from Akron, Ohio. Ray Lewis himself is from Florida. He went to the University of Miami. So he has a lot of contacts and a lot of people that are from Miami. And so after the game was over, and after the party was over, they were leaving this club. A confrontation ensued, and those two parties got into a confrontation. And as a result of it, two guys in the group of people that were from Akron, Ohio, were stabbed to death, and they were left on the street and literally died in the street. And Ray Lewis and his party got into his limo, and they fled the scene. And so from that, because he was Ray Lewis, all the witnesses were able to identify that's Ray Lewis. and so of course they put a warrant out for his arrest. They didn't know who the other party, the other members of Ray's party was, but Ray Lewis was identified. And so they put the warrant out for him. And of course, they had the license plate number of the limousine. So when they put out the warrant, they found the limousine driver first. He subsequently told them where Ray Lewis was, and then he was arrested. And Ray Lewis was charged with 2 counts of capital murder. And so capital murder in the state of Georgia meant that they could actually seek the death penalty against him. So it's the most serious charge you can get in the United States, is to be charged with a capital offense. And that, so they were coming for him. And so that case was, and in the United States, when the case is brought against you, everything that is reported in the media is from the position of the prosecutorial position. So it's all slanted and tainted towards, oh, he must have did it, or he had something to do with it, because that's the way that they present the case. And the defense, all we can do is just sit there and just wait for all of this stuff to accumulate, the evidence, and then at some point, all the evidence is given to us, statutorily by law. But there's a pause between that, and many things are done by the time we get to discovery. And that's the biggest challenge of a defense team, is waiting to get discovery. But we can get out in front of it at the time that our client gets arrested. Then, of course, we immediately go and have contact with him and get all the information that we can from him or her, so we can start developing our case and identifying witnesses. And there are many things that we know at that point that the police and the government, they do not know.
Yeah.
So
So were you part of the defense team from day one on that case, or were you brought in at a later stage? I think the case didn't actually last very long, did it?
No, it didn't. And the reason behind it is that I came in day one on that case. I was brought in. The initial investigator, the lead investigator, worked with the firm that was representing Ray. Now, I worked with one of the partners of that firm, but so I was brought in with them because of my expertise and some cultural things, because the lead investigator was an Italian American and an older gentleman. I'm African American. I was younger at that point. And I had a lot of clients previously that were sports celebrities and people in the entertainment and music industry. So that gave me an advantage, and it gave me leverage to move into social circles that's difficult for other investigators to do. Yeah. And so they brought me in on that case. And so we came in on that case in January. And we had Ray Lewis's case adjudicated by June.
Wow.
He was done. And we actually went all the way to trial. But what we were able to find in that case was it was obvious that they literally had no evidence tying Ray Lewis to the actual murder of those two individuals, other than the fact that he was present. And there were people in his group that were responsible for the murder, but it was not, in fact, Ray Lewis. And the prosecution knew that from day one. But because they were so tainted, and it's like Ray Lewis was like, in Atlanta, it was on the equivalence to the O.J. Simpson case. So like everybody involved in that case on the prosecutorial side, the police office and everyone is they're thinking ahead. Oh, this is my book opportunity. This is my OJ. This is my OJ moment. And it tainted every action from the people involved with the prosecution and the government, even all the way up to the mayor at that time. He even came out and made a press conference with the district attorney, and the things that they said in that press conference were lies, and they knew it was lies at the time that they said it, but they were so stricken with the celebrity of it that they didn't care. And so myself as a defense investigator, my business is I'm in the information business. The government accumulates information that they feel comfortable will convict our client. My job is to take every document that was involved in that case, every person that touched that case, from the initial officers that showed up at the crime scene, and then they established a perimeter to try to preserve the crime scene, to the CSI people, crime scene investigators that show up and start taking forensic evidence, to the detectives that show up and start doing perimeters and canvases and gathering information about witnesses and such, to the forensic people of the blood, the projectiles, the shell casings, all these different things. In this case, it was a stabbing, so the murder weapons were never recovered, and so we have to wait for all of this to be processed before we get it. And then the government, the rules in criminal cases, they have kind of a long window of time until they can hold this evidence until they're compelled to give it to the defense, and it's called discovery. But in this case, there was so much involved that we didn't have to wait for the police to come up with the discovery. We were there, involved, and contacted all of the players that were involved. We knew who everyone was that was there before the police did. They knew some of the players, but we knew everyone. And so we had an advantage in this case. And the more that we dive into this case, everything that I was able to peel back from this case, we were able to prove, in fact, that Ray Lewis did not hold a knife. He did not buy a knife. We had the evidence where the knife was bought, was purchased, at a sports store
Yeah, I read about
where
that.
Ray Lewis
Yes.
was doing a signing about 3 days before that occurred at this Sports Authority sports place. And so, of course, he was being paid to come there to do autographs. While he was there, two of those accomplices that was in his party, they were walking around the store and they purchased the murder weapons. They bought the two knives. And so when they purchased the knives, all this is on video because
But how do we know that was a murder weapon if the murder weapon was never discovered?
we know it was the murder weapon because we know it was in the hands of the murderers.
Yeah.
We know that, but we're not compelled to tell the government that.
They need to come up with that themselves.
We only want to absolve our client and to exonerate him, but we don't have to give information to them to implement these other two guys. Because as a matter of fact, when Ray Lewis went to trial, he went to trial with those other two guys. They were his co-defendants.